And here we are live. We are live. Sorry, we're a couple of minutes late, guys and girls. A little bit of technical problems, probably from my end more than anything else. But you know about.
You're right. Well, you had a delivery or something.
Hold on.
I thought the pizza turned up.
Hold on a minute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man. Yep.
Why can I not hear anybody? There we go.
Can you hear us now? All good?
I've lost sound. So it was my fault.
So
let me just make sure that I am. No, not now. I've lost sound, guys. Carry on, Simon, because I can't hear a thing.
I can see we've got a few people in. So thanks for everyone for joining. So today we've got Tom from Clemence Watches in. He's currently got his Photic diver. Is that how you pronounce it, Tom?
Yeah, the Photic diver. That's it.
Photic. I do apologise. I knew I was going to say it wrong. I do apologise. So right. Yeah, Tom's currently got his watch on Kickstarter. It's been funded. It finishes in the next few days, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah, October the 14th is our final day. So not too long to go now. It's been it's been a great start to the campaign, and it's been a long 2 weeks so far, and then a little under 2 weeks left. So exciting times. It's our final day, so not too long to go now. It's been it's been a great start to the campaign, and it's been a long 2 weeks so far, and then a little under 2 weeks left. So exciting times. So not too long to go now. It's been it's been a great start to the campaign, and
It's like deja vu. Anyway, so Tom, I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit gutted when I saw that on your stretch goals, the red dial was voted out, because I really like that. I bet that red dial is really nice.
Yeah. Well, never say never. The seagrass green, that's going to be our backer exclusive for Kickstarter, but who's to say that there won't be other colorways later down the line? So maybe the sea anemone will pop up one day down the line.
Have we got Adrian back? Can you hear us? No. So we won't start with the question just yet. We'll obviously get Adrian to get himself acclimatized and get his audio and stuff sorted. But so do you have anything you'd like everyone to know about your brand before we get into the questions? Is there anything you'd like to bring to people's attention?
Yeah, sure. I mean, God, there's so much. I probably bore my girlfriend to death by talking about these days. It's all that I can think about. But there's a lot to the brand. But I guess some of the things I'm most proud of in terms of not just the watch that we're creating, but also the ethos that we have behind it is our ambition to be not only climate positive, but also we're planting trees, and I think that's something that. So a little bit about me. My background is that I'm an ecologist, so I didn't come to watches through kind of traditional training or anything like that. That's not how I arrived here. I don't have a design background necessarily. More of a lifelong interest in it, but my training is in ecology. So in my day job, I spend a lot of time trying to protect and conserve wildlife. So when I was starting the company, I really wanted to try and incorporate a little bit of that into Clemence Watches, and I thought the best way for me to do that would be to help rewild and reforest the UK. So that's what we're doing. I think I'm sure people who know the brand will know this by now, but for every single watch that we sell, we're going to help rewild and reforest a UK native tree. So it's going to be somewhere in Scotland. And one of the cool things about that as well is that every tree that we plant will have its own unique grid reference allocated to it.
Okay.
So what we do with that is every single backer. We've got a bit of an echo, haven't we?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Adrian can hear us, so I think he's repeating what you're saying. That seems like it's on a loop or something. Yeah, guys and girls, I do apologise for the quality at the moment. We will get it sorted.
Shall I give Adrian a second so that I'm not talking over myself?
Can you hear us now, Adrian? I think that's a no. Yeah, so Tom, do you know what? It's good.
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to ask about the tree.
No, it's not that. For some reason, yeah, I can, but
can you hear me now? No,
I've got a delay, really bad.
Oh man,
Don't know what's going on here.
We'll go for Morse code or light signals or something like that.
Sometimes.
But yeah, I mean that's one of the big things really is the commitment that
just carry on without me while I try and figure this out.
All right. Sorry, Tom, go on.
Just carry on without me while I try and figure this out.
Just trying to do our part really to help protect the environment. So planting trees, that's one of the big things. And then in addition to that, but it is an addition. So we're also offsetting our carbon footprint for every single watch by a multiple of at least 2. I've been asked by a couple of people how are we calculating that, and the truth is that calculating carbon footprint for a product cycle is a really complicated process. Fortunately, the industry that I work in, I know some people who have been able to point me in the right direction and give me a little bit of guidance on that. And what we've done is we've actually over-egged our carbon footprint, and then we've multiplied that instead of by 2, we've multiplied it by 3, and that's what we're going to be offsetting. So that's one of the other things that we're looking to do as well. So yeah, the kind of the climate environmental promise, that's a big thing I'm really proud of behind the brand, and I think that's kind of something that I've grown up believing in is, it's important to do our part to help protect the natural world. And also, we're creating these watches and they're designed to endure these extreme environments, and that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that those extreme environments are still knocking around for decades to come, for generations to come, so that people can take the Photic diver into the Photic zone and still see everything that's down there, still swimming around, still doing its thing. So that's something that we're really excited about.
To be honest, I think given the current climate, I think it's very prevalent in terms of at the moment. Obviously, we're very much more aware of the damage we've done to the planet and with the things that we need to do to try and sort of stave off any future problems. So I think the fact that you've obviously brought that in, I think that's a really cool idea, and obviously it's something you're passionate about given what you do for a living. So I think that's really cool that you've given a nod to your day job as well. Yeah,
thanks a lot. But it's not all about all about that. There is also a very good watch behind that ethos, and I think that's for a lot of us, for us watch nerds, that's something that is perhaps the most important thing, and rightly so, because at the end of the day you're spending hard-earned cash on something that you want to make sure is going to be high quality.
Tom, I don't know if, what I might do, given the fact Adrian's in and out, I might just start with my questions, just so we can go for a couple of my questions, and obviously then if Adrian manages to get back on, I can give him the floor, so that he can obviously ask a couple of questions. Is that all right? Because then we can obviously keep things a little bit more coherent.
Yeah.
All good?
That sounds good.
Yeah, so I messaged over to you. I wanted to know, what was your inspiration for starting your watch brand? And is there anything that you found harder or easier than expected in the process?
Yeah, sure. So when 18 months ago, when Clemence watches first kind of became an idea, there wasn't necessarily a lightning in the bottle moment. I think there was more of a collection of life experiences that brought me to this point. I've spoken about on my website and on podcasts and things like that, how I fell in love with watches, and that was very much through growing up, listening to childhood stories of my late grandfather, and marveling at his vintage Universal Geneve. That's kind of the moment I would like to pick out as saying that's how I fell in love with watches. But past that point, watches have always been a part of my story. I've always had one on my wrist wherever I've been, and it's nice now you know, I look back at photos of me as I was growing up and as I was a young man, kind of traveling and, you know, living my life. There's always a watch on my wrist, and some of those watches have left the collection now, but I can associate certain moments in time to those timepieces, and I think that's a special thing. So that was kind of some of the inspiration behind starting the brand. I've always been a tinkerer as well, so it just made sense for me to go into something where I got to play with things that I loved and kind of, you know, just try and make something special, really. In terms of what I found easiest and hardest, truth be told, starting a micro brand is a difficult thing.
Yeah, I could imagine.
You know,
I could imagine.
There's a lot of lessons to be learned, and it takes a long time to learn those lessons. And I think that's something that I was really mindful of when I started on this journey. I've mentioned already, my background isn't in design. It's well, I've always had an interest in it. So I really didn't want to rush the process. So it started about 18 months ago when I first put pen to paper and started sketching out what it was that I wanted my watch to look like. And I've had a lot of conversations. I've been really, really lucky in that I've made some fantastic connections and friendships with people in the industry who knew and know a lot more than I do. And they were able to really steer me in the right direction in terms of what would and wouldn't work. And they've been a fantastic asset to have, and just, you know, so grateful to them. And aside from that as well, you know, friends and family, they've always provided a lot of help and input as well in terms of what they think would look good and what wouldn't look good. I think that's always been a kind of a really helpful kind of, I don't know, middle line to keep in my mind, you know, what is and isn't going to work, but also what do I think is going to look good, and translating that into a design. It took a lot of time. There was a lot of iterations. You know, you look back through my catalogue of previous designs, and there's probably been in excess of 100 kind of tweaks made along the way. You know, there's a lot.
Has there been anything that remain? Has there been any things that have remained consistent in terms of certain fundamental parts of the watch that haven't changed?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the core of the design has stayed true to itself from day one. There's just been these tiny tweaks that have been made. I started off with the sapphire bezel as it is now. So, well, almost as it is now. It's always been a bezel with just markers, no numbers, and I just love that look. You know, if you look back at vintage Squale, they use this kind of numberless bezel design in some of their pieces, and I fell in love with it years ago, and just always thought to myself, God, I'd love to have a piece with that design on it. So that was something that was really important to incorporating in it and keeping. Also, the overall kind of dimensions of the watch. I've got, I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I'm really fortunate to have a Black Bay 58 in my collection, and that to me just wears perfectly. I wouldn't change a thing about it. So I wanted to.
I'll definitely say there's a gentleman here that would definitely agree with you as well.
Yeah. Have you got?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
There's the culprit.
Aha.
Yeah, so Tom, Adrian's also got one. He's got a Black Bay 58.
Have you? Oh, fantastic.
I don't have the 58. I have it's the OG.
The original, nice. Oh, the red bezel as well. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a beautiful watch.
Piece. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my 58 for me, it just wears perfectly, and so I wanted to include those types of proportions within my design. So that was something else that's always stayed true. In terms of things that I found easier than I expected, honestly, I don't think there was a single thing. And that's not a bad thing either. I think, you know, it's a cliche thing to say, but if something's worth having, it's worth doing properly, and normally that means you've got to work hard for it. And that's what I've done. You know, I've put the time into making sure this has been done properly. Nothing has been kind of not thought about. Every single part of this watch has been meticulously pored over. Many hours have gone into every single detail. In fact, it's perfect timing. Just going to show it to the camera. You can see the second hand. It's just about to sweep between the 12 and the C.
Mm-hmm.
And that diamond, you might not be able to see it from the angle, but that diamond passes perfectly. There's not a there's not even a whisker of space between the C and the 12 and the diamond. And it's those types of little details that to most people are probably not that important. But to me, I just wanted to get just right to get that balance correct. So yeah, refining those details took a lot of time and wasn't an easy process. But oh man, every time I look at it, I know that it was worth it. So no regrets.
Was there any different sort of contenders in terms of the movement? Because I must say I love the 9000 series Miota, so I think it was a great choice. And I'm glad you went for the no date variant in a no date watch, because I know a lot of people tend to just put the 9015 in, and you got a ghost position. I think it's a bit shoddy at times. I'm glad that you went for the no date variant. That was cool.
Yeah.
And like I said, but was there any other contenders in terms of the movement?
Yeah, I mean, when I started out, I was looking at. I knew that I wanted to go with a no date to start with. That was just a design choice I made quite early on. Mostly because if I were to have a date, I'd want it at 6 o'clock, and I wanted to have the 12 and 6 indices as I have now on this iteration. But so yeah, in contention there was the 9015, mostly because it's more widely available, and it's because of that, it's not to say there's a price difference, because there isn't, but because of its availability, it can affect the price of the piece.
Of course.
But I completely agree. I didn't want to have a ghost position in the crown. That was important to me, because I knew that every single time I changed the time on the watch, or kind of put a new one on and wound it up, whatever, that would just bug me. And I didn't want to have that little kind of thing in the back of my mind thinking, maybe I could have done that better. So I knew early on that I wasn't going to settle for a movement that had a ghost position. And that left me with a couple of options. There's the Seiko NH36, I think, is the no date variation of the NH35. I looked at that, a fantastic movement, but just a little bit too chunky for what I was going for with the profile of this piece. It would have meant adding one.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's the NH38 is the no.
Is it? Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, no, NH36 is the day-date variant. But it's a minefield. I wouldn't really worry about it. I've just looked at so many watches, and I've recited it so many times on video. I just sort of fall into autopilot.
I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine. But yeah, no, I decided that I wanted to keep a like thin of a profile as I could on this piece. Just like the vintage kind of 1960s, 1970s dive watches, they always managed to have this beautiful thin profile. And I thought if I went with the Seiko, then I might have been compromising that. So that was kind of, the line was drawn through that. And then the alternative to that was possibly going Swiss. And unless you're moving up to the SW300s, you're sacrificing on the thickness of the movement. The Miota 9K series is actually thinner than the SW200s from Salita, for example. So also you're paying a significant premium for that. And where I wanted to start out, I wanted to start by offering a watch that not everyone can afford, because it's not to say it's cheap. It's a lot of money to spend on a watch, but at the same time, it's an accessible price point that I think enthusiasts can get on board with. So that was it really. It felt like the 9039 was just the obvious choice, and that's a fantastic movement. It ticks away, and it's interesting. My watchmaker Raphael, he amazing guy, so much experience, and we had quite a big conversation about what movement we should be looking at, and he completely agreed with me. I asked him for his opinion on the Swiss counterparts, and he basically told me, and I researched this myself and kept drawing the same conclusions, that the Miota 9K series, they've been knocking around for some time now. They've got some really good kind of empirical data behind them, and we know that they stand up to the abuses of everyday life. And so yeah, I thought, there's nothing else that I could really choose at this point. It just made perfect sense.
Yeah, I think I mentioned I do think it's a very good choice. I do like the Miota 9K series movement. It's probably my favourite movement, to be honest. I think it ticks a lot of boxes. So I think you've done well going with that personally. I think it was a good choice. So Adrian, I did my first question. I was going to do my second question had you not come back, but where you've reappeared, I will hand you the floor. But
Thank you very much.
Well,
actually,
I don't know if you want to do a wrist shot. I'm going to do some wrist checks because we didn't do that before. We was waiting for you.
Oh yeah, go for it. You know what I've got on.
Oh, what are you wearing? I don't know. I can't remember. Oh, you're okay. And Tom, it probably sounds silly to ask, but what are you wearing, by the way?
Yeah, it'll come as no surprise. I've got a Photic diver on at the moment. There's the camera. It's the Photic dial variant, so it's got that blue black gradient on it, and it's got the bronze gilt on the hands and the indices. It just, yeah, it looks great, especially in this kind of incandescent light that I've got going on in my living room at the moment. It's really kind of popping under it, and the sunburst is going for it. And yeah, I've got it on our Tropic rubber strap at the moment as well, which is dead comfortable for the weekend.
Yeah, that Tropic strap's nice. I like that strap.
Cheers. How about yourself?
So I've not got on a Clemence because I don't have one, but I do. What I am wearing is my, I'll get it right the right way. It's my Rotary Legacy two-tone.
Oh, nice.
It's just one of their Swiss watches. It's running a Solita movement inside.
Wow.
Really, really nice. You won't be able to pick it up in this light, but the dial is phenomenal. It really is nice.
Is that mother of pearl or?
No, it's sort of like the dial's textured. I probably could send you some pictures.
Yeah.
It's not doing it justice in this light because I've just got a normal light. I haven't got my recording light or anything. But I've got the two-tone and I've also got a black one. I like them so much. I had two of them because I just thought for the money you could buy these for. It just represented ridiculous value for money. And I've said before with Rotary, they're not all winners, but when they do a good watch, they do a good watch. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, fantastic. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's true.
Rotary had those. I haven't seen those before.
Yeah, honestly, Rotary Legacy is they run Swiss movements and they've got the sapphire crystal. They've got all that stuff. It's really nice, and you can normally pick them up for sort of £300, which is pretty good value for what you're getting.
Absolutely. Is it? What type of movement is it? I know you said it was Swiss.
It's the Solita.
Is it?
It's the SW200. Yeah.
Awesome. Nice. Yeah. Good piece.
Plus, I got this. I'm not gonna lie. I got this a lot cheaper. I got it on eBay. New for £120. Wow. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I said to agent at the time, I felt like I pulled someone's pants down. It was one of those moments in time.
Yeah.
Someone made an offer, and for some unknown reason, the guy accepted. I'm guessing he was a bit strapped for cash, but his loss is my gain.
Yeah. Wow. Well, good choice. Good pick.
Sometimes you have to take advantage of a situation.
I don't know how to talk about
it.
Riddled with guilt.
I would say that would be a first, but it's not. So anyway, my question. You've already actually started to kind of talk about it, but it's really basically what came first, the chicken or the egg. So do you build a watch around a movement choice, or do you start with your design and then decide what you're going to put inside it?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. It's a bit of both, you know. I think I guess it's important when you set out to design a watch to have a really good awareness of what the options are. And I wanted to make sure that didn't set out to design something that was unachievable, and then would later have to be shoehorned in to fit around a movement. So I guess when I started designing the watch, that's when I started to get deep into movement choices, and I was looking at them kind of simultaneously, truth be told. I knew that I wanted to go for a no date, and I knew that I wanted to keep a thin profile. And whilst I had that in my mind, that's when I started looking at kind of what the choices were. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, the Miyota, for a number of reasons, just stood out as the obvious pick for the Photic. So yeah, that was it really. It was simultaneous, I think.
Cool. That's a really good answer, because it's often I often think about that kind of thing when a microbrand sort of designs a watch. Where do you begin? You know, for me, I guess I kind of thought, well, presumably you'd come up with some kind of a case shape and a design. And you think, right, okay, what are we going to power it with? But then when you get down to kind of the nitty gritty of wanting to keep that slim profile, obviously it must get a bit more complicated, I suppose.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm lucky in that I've started out, and this is fine. This is not a coincidence. I started out simple. I started out with a classic three-hander. There's no date. There's no complications. It's as pure and simple as you can get in terms of a mechanical piece. I think hats off to folks who have designed some fantastic chronograph watches, because the choices out there are there's so much variety, and it becomes so much more complicated. I think when you start looking at the nitty gritty of movement design, movement options, and movement dimensions, all of a sudden your options become so complicated. And for companies like Studio Underdog, who have absolutely knocked it out of the park with their design, I'd like to know, for them, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it the movement or the design? Because it's not a simple process at all when you're trying to balance so many different things, not just design, but also price and also, case profile. It's there's a lot that goes into it.
But I think for you,
so
Tom,
how many changes did you have to make to the design before it was actually born?
Well, as I mentioned to Simon, the actual design itself went through. I couldn't even tell you how many iterations there have been. There's been a lot. It's been crazy, but it's been a nice process, because a lot of the time I would settle on design, I'd come back, I'd tweak it. There were just a lot of tweaks being made, but in terms of the solid dimensions, they were set pretty early on, to be honest. Once I had a rough design in mind, that's when I started looking properly, like really properly, at movement choices and kind of the dimensions that I'd have to be working with, and that's when I figured out that the 9039 was the choice to make, and also that I could accommodate it within a case that's just 10.5 thick, and that was the moment that I was like, this is the one to go for, because I've said I've got the BB58, and I'm not for a moment going to say that I'm more qualified than Tudor to make a good watch, because that wouldn't be telling the truth. But I've got them both on my desk. They sit in front of me for most of the day when I'm working away. There we go. And I compare the profiles, and I think I prefer the Photic. That's in no small part down to the fact that I picked the right move.
Well, to be fair, you should do.
Yeah, it's just as well, really, isn't it?
So unless you want to elaborate, should I crack on my second question? Is that all right?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, where you go, Simon?
Yeah, so I think you kind of answered it slightly when you was talking about your granddad earlier. So it might be a bit of a deja vu moment, but I mean, I'll ask the question anyway. So my question was, what was the watch that got you into watches, and do you have a Grail watch?
I do have a Grail watch, and in terms of what got me into watches, there was, I think I mentioned my granddad's UG, his Universal Genève, and that definitely played an important part, but I don't think it could be tied to one single watch. There's so many different influences, and as you grow up, your tastes change. When I was kind of the first watch that springs to my mind I was obsessed with, other than the Universal Genève, was those Casio F91s, those old school little rectangular ones. Absolutely love them. And when I was a little kid, I was just obsessed with having one of those. I loved the light up dials that they had. I would imagine that I was an explorer, having this light up dial to kind of find my way out of caves and things like that. And then when I got a bit older, I got over that fascination. In my teens and early 20s, I started discovering the forums and started reading on there, and that was when I picked up one of my earliest mechanical watches, which was as I'm sure it will come as no surprise, a Seiko. It was a Seiko SKX 007, and I've still got it. Absolutely love it, and I'm never going to part with it. And I think that really got me into the tool watch aesthetic, and having a watch that I knew I could beat up and rely upon, no matter what I was doing or where I was going. So yeah, they're my kind of inspiration pieces, I'd say. My Grail, you know, I'm really lucky in that I've already got it. It's my Tudor Black Bay 58. In terms of Grails that are mass produced, I should say. I guess this was my vision of the most perfect watch, but it still wasn't perfect. And I think ultimately, actually, that's part of the reason why I decided to form Clemence Watches. I saw this amazing timepiece being produced. It's beautiful. You know, I wouldn't want to critique the Black Bay because there's really not a lot to be said in terms of negatives. But for me, you know, there was just something that just wasn't quite right. And I thought, well, maybe I could make that my idea of what is just right. And as I said, you know, that the Black Bay, it played a part in inspiring the design of the Photic, inspiring the dimensions and the wearability. And that's kind of what brought me to the design we have today. And yeah, I think it's got to be said, what's the best Grail piece you could have? Is it a watch that you've designed and made yourself? For me, yes, it's that.
Yeah,
So,
I'd go with that. Yeah, I think in some ways, I think like with the design of the Tudor, I think that they were probably they were under some kind of constraint in some way because of their history, and because of like the Tudor sub, and also kind of in some way probably the Rolex Submariner as well must have played a part. Whereas I think it might have been because somebody like yourself, you've got such a blank canvas. I mean, you really can design whatever you want, and you've got nothing to kind of guide you or kind of point you in any particular direction.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to start off with that blank canvas, and it's every time I think about the legacy that this is going to leave behind, it makes me feel happy, you know. And I think that's what, for me at least, is an important part of what makes a Grail watch.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think the thing is, Tom, I think you should be massively proud of yourself, to be honest, because I've always said, for me, I've said this, I started my channel last November, and for me, I've always made a point of saying that I would never criticize a watch brand because I respect the fact that he put himself out there to try and succeed. Do you understand what I mean? Because to put yourself in a position where you could fail is daunting, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Because you have to put yourself out. You've got to put your head on the chopping block where things might not go the way you want them to. You might not produce what you want, but you're trying. And for me, I'll tip my hat to anybody that puts themselves out there to try and succeed.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, and especially somebody as I don't mean this to be rude, but somebody as young as Tom, it's quite something that you've taken on. To be fair.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's not taken on lightheartedly at all, and I think you know, both yourselves, you know what it's like trying to kind of build something that's not. It's not cut from the norm. You know, you guys have built up your own YouTube channels. I'm trying to build up my own watch brand, and it's about indulging your passions and also putting yourself out there, as you say. And you know, it's not an easy thing to do necessarily, and there is the risk of it not going right. But I think that is a fantastic motivation to make sure that everything you do, you can hold your head up high and say, yeah, I've done this as well as I possibly can. And I think there's an important kind of thing behind that, you know, to be proud of what you're putting out there and what you're doing. I think that's a really, really important thing for any startup business. And I think it's an amazing thing with micro brands, actually. Every single brand owner that I've met and spoken to, they just tend to be cut from the same cloth. You know, they're all fantastic people and all incredibly helpful and just really willing to not only talk about their watches, but talk about other people's watches and you know, not just watches, just offer help and advice on whatever. And I think it takes a particular type of person to step outside from the mold and try and do something that's a bit more interesting and following a passion. So yeah, I think that goes for watch brands and kind of small business owners, YouTubers, you know, you name it, anybody that's trying to just do something interesting and that they're passionate about. I think
how have you found the kind of the overall reaction and the usefulness of social media in the development, or not necessarily the development, but kind of the building of a brand and trying to get it out there? Has it worked on the social media front?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, guys. When I first started the brand, I wasn't big into social media. I barely used my Facebook, and occasionally posted a picture of my private Instagram account. I can remember when I first started out, I had a few friends who have their own small businesses and have done various other things, and I asked them, guys, how do you do Instagram for a business? Like, just how does this work? How does it happen? And Simon, I think you connected with me really early on. It was possibly like the first week that our Instagram account went live. And I still remember sitting at home on the sofa chatting with you for the first time, and being just kind of blown away, to be honest, by the response, even at that point, that I was getting from different people, yourself included. And yeah, it's been amazing. Social media has been our primary way of marketing the watch to date, and I think it's a really important platform for any small business that's starting out, because it offers a voice for us to have, to whoever will listen and whoever's interested. And the nice thing about things like Instagram is that those people who are listening and hearing what you have to say have chosen to do so. They're not being kind of just kind of having it jammed down their throat or whatever. They've chosen to follow you because they have a vested interest in what you're doing. So that's a really nice way, I think, to communicate the brand, communicate the
So how long did it take you to become sort of more, I don't know, familiar with using because for me, I've got to be honest, Adrian knows this, I'm not really big on social media. I started my Instagram really just to help promote my YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not massively indulgent in Instagram. I kind of just post my thumbnails and stuff on my videos, just because I've never really been one for social media, if I'm honest. So to try and transition is not easy. Do you understand what I mean? So how did you find it?
Yeah, totally. It took me a little while to kind of properly get to grips with it. And I think, there's still stuff to be learned. It's a whole discipline in and of itself. There are jobs out there that people have full-time day jobs that are managing social media profiles and managing accounts like that. And it's a really time-consuming process. But I think it's worth putting the time in. For me, at least, it has been. I'm not you, Sam. Naturally, I'm perhaps a little bit more introvert, and on my personal account, don't really post that much. But when you're developing a brand, it doesn't pay to be too quiet. At least that's what I've found. And so I've tried to put myself out there and be brave, I guess, and put a face to the brand and put a bit of my personality into it as well. And it's been really positive. I've mentioned already how incredibly supportive brand owners have been, but I haven't talked about the community, the wider community. And I think that's something that's really struck me, is just how supportive so many people are out there. And these people, they don't know me, I don't know them personally. They've seen what I'm doing, and they've picked up on it, and they like it, and we've connected. And there are some people that I talk with almost on a daily basis now, through Instagram, and I've made some really good connections, and really meaningful connections as well, which has it's not something I expected at all to come out of this. I'll be honest, but it's a really, really nice thing. And I think that speaks to the community at whole. I think the watch collectors, we're savvy. We pay a lot of attention to the detail, and when something's not quite right, that can mean something to us. That's an important thing to pick up on. And I think at the same time, with that attention to detail, we're very selective in what we do and don't like. And I've been just so amazed and, to be honest, blown away by how many people are being so kind of vocal and supportive of me and the brand. And I'm just so grateful, to be honest. People like yourselves, who, we're just having a chat here, and there's been no exchange other than just kind words and chat. And it's amazing that we're all willing to connect with one another through watches and form these kind of friendships and relationships. It's just, it's something really special. I think it's pretty cool. There aren't a lot of hobbies, I think, that revolve around collecting material kind of pieces that I think has so much passion behind it.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. And I think also what's pretty cool was that, obviously, talking to people that have the same passion as yourself. I know when I started coming on Instagram and I met Adrian and other people, it was so crazy that I could talk about my passion without people losing interest. Because normally I'll talk about a watch and I'm telling them, oh, look at this and look at that. And you can just see their eyes glaze over because they're not really bothered or interested in what I'm saying. So when you're talking to other people that have the same passion as you and they're engaged with you and they're talking, it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's yeah, the watch fam, you know, we're few and far between, but we're out there, and yeah, social media is a good way to find them. But Adrian, I didn't realize, but obviously when we first connected back in the early days as well, you were, at least before I moved to Edinburgh, just down the road from me, weren't you?
That's right. Yeah, I'm in Cambridge. Yeah.
Yeah, that really surprised me, and it's interesting. I was kind of, when I got a bit more deeper into the space, there's another micro brand who actually lived in the same town as me. I think it's Marlin Watches.
Marchand.
No, there's another one. I'm pretty sure it's called Marlin. And
I know Marlin.
Yeah, they're in St Neots, which is where I lived until April when I moved up to Edinburgh. So yeah, it's a small world. We're all over the place.
Yeah, to be honest with you, when we started talking, because you was in the process of moving, wasn't you? Because I was talking to you and you was in the process of moving up to Edinburgh.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, and yeah, we've been up here for about 6 months or so now, and yeah, great city. Absolutely love it up here.
So, Adrian, what's your final question then, before we can open it up to the viewing audience?
Yes, right. I'll move on because we're moving up in time as well. Probably down to my messing about in the beginning. So, I mean, even though that the Photic diver has literally only just been launched.
Yeah.
Have you got any kind of plans for anything new in the future, new designs, or are you going to kind of concentrate on the Photic and do kind of some different colorways, maybe do a date version, etc., and kind of expand on the Photic?
Yeah. So
what's next?
Good. It's a good question. We've already got some designs in place for our next model, and I'm so excited to bring that out. I think people are going to really like what we've put together. It's we've followed the Photic DNA. We've kept that because it's a design, and it's the brand, isn't it? Our Photic at the moment. We want to follow that. We want to keep that, stay true to that design, but bring it through into some new complications, some new models, and some new pieces. So what we're working on next, I won't give away too much, but it's not a diver. It is a new design, and it's, to answer your question earlier as well about movements, there's been a lot of careful consideration about that also. So I think people are going to enjoy what comes next.
Is there any sort of, sorry to interrupt, is there any sort of launch date you got in mind? Is it going to be early next year?
We don't have a launch date yet. No, we're still prototyping and going through kind of final phases. I think, again, like I did with the Photic, I'm really not looking to rush any part of the process. So it might take a little bit of time, but it will come. And I think it's going to be, it's going to be a real treat. I think it's going to go down well. I think it certainly does with me. I get dead excited every time I look at it. So can't wait for that.
Certainly look forward to that.
Yeah, I hope people will like it as much as I do, at least. But yeah, in terms of the Photic, it's not going anywhere. That's definitely going to come back again in the future. I think for now we'll focus on, we've got our funding now, so that is our main objective, is just making sure that we get the pieces out to people who have backed.
As far as getting the Photic out there is concerned, have you only kind of shared the watch around the UK, or have you got any overseas?
Yeah, so we've shared it. It's been over to the States as well. A couple of different pieces have been over to the States, so we've had some really nice reviews. Actually, I was gobsmacked, to be honest, by the response from both the Time Bum and also the Watch Clicker. They've both written some brilliant reviews, and actually the Time Bum, this is an accolade that I love, voted the Photic diver their Shark Week. What was it? Shark Week watch of 2021, and it was just such a cool accolade, because especially seeing as in 2020 the accolade went to a Laurier watch, and who doesn't love a Laurier? They're so nice.
Quite impressive.
Yeah. So to kind of be put next to them is a really kind of nice feeling. Really cool. And in terms of other kind of overseas exposure, I've actually got a piece at the moment with Worn and Wound, which is really exciting. So we're hoping for a review to be published in a couple of weeks' time from them, just before the campaign ends. So that's dead exciting. But yeah, and then the rest of the kind of the rest of the pieces, they've mostly been shared around the UK. So Simon's of course checked one out, and there's a thank you so much for that, by the way, Simon. Absolutely fantastic review on your channel, and a few other people have taken a look at it. So yeah, it's and everyone who's seen it's kind of had some really nice things to say, and yeah, it's just been a great response. Very pleased.
Cool. Well, I think we can get some questions in from people in the chat. I see that we've got one down here from True. You want to know what the RRP was on the Photic diver.
Good
so
question.
where you go, Tom? Selling one.
Yeah. So RRP, our RRP for the Photic is 429. That's at full retail, but at the moment we're running our Kickstarter campaign, so this is going to be running until October the 14th. We've still got our early bird discounts available, so I'm just going to read them off for you. So at the moment we have still got early birds available at 385, so that's a saving of about £94 once you factor in the leather pouch that comes for free with every single campaign backer. So yeah, I mean, if you fancy picking up a bit of a bargain, that would be the advice, because that discount's only going to be available whilst we're running the Kickstarter campaign.
And that pouch is something special as well. I like the pouch. I remember messaging you when it arrived and saying I actually really like that pouch. It was good quality.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thank you. It's really cool to hear that as well, because the pouch, obviously the watch is the focus, completely my focus. But the pouch is an original design as well. That's not an off-the-shelf piece. Just like everything on the watch, it's all been custom made. So the pouch has got its own little kind of tab on it to hold the tools, which I think is just a really fun little detail that I haven't seen on many others out there. And it's also got two little slots for the watch and also a bracelet or a spare strap, or whatever that you want to take with you when you're traveling around. Part of what we're doing as well, talked a lot about environmental promises and things like that, and trying to keep impacts low, and the pouch feeds into that. So we're not going down the route of providing fancy kind of piano wood box or anything like that. We're providing the leather pouch and a pretty simple cardboard box for our packaging, just to help keep things streamlined as possible and make sure that all the money that's being spent on the watch is going actually on the watch instead of a cardboard box that's going to live in your wardrobe.
To be honest with you, I think that is a fantastic idea anyway. I would like to see more companies sort of go, although it looks nice, you get a nice wooden box and everything else. Yeah. But oftentimes, if you've got a watch collection, as most of us do, these boxes just take up a lot of space. And we don't tend to use them again for anything. So I bought a Zelos. And Zelos are pretty cool because they come with like an outer wooden box that you now use to keep spare watch straps in. And inside that, they've got a travel pouch that you can use. So again, you're utilizing something rather than just having it sitting in the gathering dust. Do you understand what I mean? So I think that's a much better way to do things personally.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of torn which I prefer. I mean, when you think the Zanaya, the Eula diver, the box that came in was phenomenal.
Very nice.
With the big medallion. I mean, it's all very nice getting stuff like that. And I don't know whether I prefer that or something like a leather pouch or a watch roll. I think the thing with that, though,
sorry, Adrian, I think the thing with that is that sometimes it's nice aesthetically and it feels a bit indulgent, but ultimately you're not going to do anything with it. So it just becomes a bit like an ashtray on a motorbike, doesn't it? So you're not actually going to do nothing. So as much as it's cool at the time, it looks nice when it arrives and you have that little bit of butterflies in your stomach.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, because I do use my Tudor box. Do you use yours, Tom?
I don't. Mine's.
Thank you, Tom.
Mine's wrapped up in the wardrobe.
Okay, so I'll consider myself thrown under the bus then. I'll just shut up.
Yeah, sorry.
So Adrian, Adrian, what do you use it for then? It's sort of like a doorstop. What do you use it for?
I use it. I keep a watch in it. I keep the tuner in it.
Oh, do
Oh, do
you?
you?
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm not going to let it share the box with the Casios.
No, I thought you might have like a nice singular watch winder that it goes in. Like,
No, I haven't
right
got
to
one of
case.
those yet. I haven't got one of those yet.
But yeah, like I say,
No,
I think
I do use the tuner box, and if I'd kind of had something like a Zanaya box, I'd probably use that. But at the same time, if you get something like a leather pouch or a watch roll, I think that is equally cool.
Yeah.
I mean, MAS do it, don't they? Matthew and Son, where you get a 4-watch roll in there, and I think that's also cool because
Yeah.
it's great. You can take it traveling, you can wrap your watches up there, pretty well protected. So yeah, I do get it. All I'm saying is I'm not sure once you start getting kind of sort of when you're spending a bit more money on a piece, or you get something like a micro brand watch. Then whether you want to keep it in like an original box. I say, oh yeah, I'm undecided. I'm undecided.
Yeah, I think I get where you're coming from, Adrian. I think there's there's a difference, isn't there, between a micro brand that's coming in at sub £1,000 and a luxury timepiece that's in excess of 2,000. There's obviously a difference there with your mind when you're buying it. You're thinking more about maybe the brand heritage that Tudor has, for example, and things like that, versus some kind of maybe something from a younger brand like a micro brand. But also, interestingly, having seen it from the consumer side before I started Clemence watches and now the production side, I've got a really good kind of insight in terms of what the costs are behind every single piece that goes into a watch product. And to my mind, I think micro brands are hitting that nail on the head. They're just nailing it. So many of them are providing pared back, simpler packaging, but really good, high quality, reusable travel pouches and things like that don't just collect dust. And I think those luxury boxes that you get from brands like Tudor, Rolex, they absolutely have their place, because when you're spending £2,000, £3,000, whatever, you're kind of looking for a slightly different opening experience. Whereas when you're getting a micro brand, it feels a bit more kind of down to earth. Maybe you're not looking to be blown away by opening the box. You're more looking to be blown away by the watch. And I think what micro brands are doing is that we're focusing on spending every single penny that we make during the process on the watch. We're not there is no fat in any micro brand's budget. It's the margins are wafer thin, and so I think it's really clever the way that micro brands are saving the money on the boxes and instead putting it into the watches and those reusable products that we can all get daily use out of. I think it's a good shout.
Yeah,
to be honest with you,
I would agree.
I think with affordable to mid-tier watches, I think the problem is if you're going to get really nice packaging and then you spot something wrong with the watch, I would be of the mind where I'd say I would rather it just come in basic packaging, but the watch is spot on. Do you understand? I mean, if there's not a drawback to the watch, fantastic having nice packaging. But the most important thing is the watch does what it's supposed to do, and it's as good as it can be for the money. Do you understand what I mean? So as long as it doesn't detract from that, the packaging, then yeah, I would tend to agree.
Yeah, totally. Cool.
I will consider myself told then. Thank you.
So I don't know if this is a question.
To be fair, I mean, Wes definitely agrees with Tom. So and I think that's probably the general consensus of opinion. Plus, it also goes with the kind of the environmental approach that you were talking about earlier. I just kind of caught snippets of it was kind of cutting in and out. But so yeah, I can understand why you do it, and it is cool.
Yeah,
I'll go with that.
Adrian, all I would say is just think about what you've been saying, okay? Just think about what you've done. Take a moment. Take a moment to reflect, and we forgive you, okay?
Yeah.
I'm only joking. Anyone got any more questions? Has anyone got any more
Yes,
questions?
if there's any more questions, because we're up at about an hour, even though I missed kind of the first 10-15 minutes. So then, I mean, if there's no more questions, then we will open the floor up to Tom. If there's anything else he'd like to say, just remind everybody that's in there about your brand, and where they can find you, etc., because that's very important, and they know where they can get hold of you.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I'll give you guys a moment to see if there are any questions coming in. If not, then I'll start chatting.
We've got no more at the moment.
Okay, fantastic.
So,
Yes. So
where you go, Tom. If anybody puts any up, we'll put them at the end.
Awesome. Sounds good. Okay, cool. Yeah. So, well, first of all, guys, thank you so much for letting me come in today and have a really good chat with you. It's really nice to talk properly about watches. Always a good time. In terms of me, the brand, where you can find us, I'm Tom, Clemence Watches. Check us out. You can find us on Instagram at Clemence Watches. We've got our Kickstarter campaign that's live at the moment for the Photic diver. That'll be concluding on the 14th of October, so don't wait. Get those early bird discounts while you still can. What else? ClemenceWatches.com. You can find us. I think one of the best things anyone can do who's interested in the brand as well, just give us a Google, Clemence Watches, and put the word review in as well, and you'll find a number of fantastic articles and videos from experts around the world who have taken a look at the Photic and have had some really nice things to say. And yeah, if you as a consumer, as a person, have any kind of questions that we haven't answered today, feel free to just send me a DM on Instagram. I'll always reply. And yeah, that's me. Thanks a lot, guys.
That's great. Yeah, and honestly, guys, anybody out there, if you have got anything you want to ask Tom that you think of after the live is finished, then definitely feel free to message him. He is very approachable, and he's easy guy to chat to through DM on Instagram. So definitely do that. But I mean, other than that, I think that's about it for this one.
Good stuff. Cool.
See, Tom, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. Like I said, it was nice to actually have a proper conversation with you. Obviously, we've had a lot of messages back and forward and stuff, so it was nice to communicate. Obviously, I'll stay in touch with you anyway, and I'll keep an eye on the watch.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, and I look forward to what you've got coming up in the future as well. I'll definitely keep my eyes open for that. I mean, I always keep my eyes open for what you're posting on Instagram anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's been great to chat to you, great to meet you. So thank you very much for coming on, for giving up your time. And cheers as well to Simon for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
My co-conspirator. And thanks to everybody in the chat as well. Thanks to everybody that's popped in and popped out. And this will obviously be available on my channel should you wish to catch up with it later. But yeah, that's it from us for now. So until the next time, in a month's time, we'll catch you all next time. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.